Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnu Par Paramahamsa Privrajakacharya Stotra Sutta Shri Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki, Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivedanta Ki, Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki, Shri Vrindavan Dhama Ki, Mayapur Dhama Ki, Jagannath Puri Dhama Ki, Ganga Mai Ki, Jamuna Mai Ki, Bhakti Devi Ki, Srimati Tosi Maharani Ki, Samavita Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki, Janitaya Gaur Pramanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga, glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki. So we're doing 19 and 20, right? Yeah. They said 19 and 20. But they're writing which one? 18. No, that was yesterday. No problem. So that today we'll just chant through. I'll just chant and no, it's okay. Yeah, today is 19 and 20. Well, at least that's the verses they gave me. Let's just double check. Yeah, Krishna Kanai Prabhu yesterday did 4, 7, 18, and today is 19 and 20. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So if anyone has a smartphone, they can search on Vedabase 4719. We'll be chanting that verse today. Okay. Tada swaprabhaya tesham dyotayantyadisho dasha mushnam steja upanitas Tarkshyena stotra vajina Tada swaprabhaya tesham Dyotayantyadisho dasha Mushnam steja upanitas Tarkshyena stotravajina Tadha sva prabhaya tesham Dyodayantyadisho dasha Mushnam steja upanitas Tarkshena stotravajinam Tadha sva prabhaya tesham Dyotayantyadisho dasha Nukshnam steja upanitas Darkshina stotravajina. Marajis? Tadha sva prabhaya tesham Drodayantyadisho dasha Mushnam steja upanitas Tarkshena stotravajina Tada sva prabhaya tesham Tada sva prabhaya tesham Dodayantyadisho dasha Mushnam steja upanitas Darkshena stotravajina. Translation, word for word, sorry. Tada, at that time, Swaprabhaya, by his own effulgence, Tesham, all of them, Dyotayantya, by brightness, Disha, directions, Dasha, 10, Mushnam, diminishing, Tejaha, effulgence, Upanitas, brought, Takshena, by Garuda, Stotravajina, whose wings are called Brihat and Ratantara. Translation, Lord Narayana was seated on the shoulders of Stotra or Garuda, who had big wings. As soon as the Lord appeared, all directions were illuminated, diminishing the luster of Brahma and the others present. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. A description of Narayana is given in the following 2 slokas. Haribol. Today we're also doing verse number 20, but I'll just chant it through. Shyamo hiranyarasanorka kirita jushto nilalaka brahmaramandita kundalayasha sankabja chakra sarachapa gadashi charma vyagrair hiranmaya bujair iva karnikaraha. Word for word. Shyamaha, blackish. Hiranyarasanaha, a garment like gold. Arka kirita jushta, with a helmet as dazzling as the sun. Nila alaka, bluish curls. Brahmara, big black bees. Mandita kundalayasha, having a face decorated with earrings. Shanka, concho. Abja, lotus flower. Chakra, wheel. Sara, arrows. Chapa, bow. Gada, club. Asi, sword. Charma, shield. Vyagraih, filled with. Hiranmaya, golden. Bracelets and bangles. Bujai, with hands. Eva, as. Karnikaraha, flower tree. Translation: his complexion was blackish, his garment yellow like gold, and his helmet as dazzling as the sun. His hair was bluish, the color of black bees, and his face was decorated with earrings. His 8 hands held a conch shell, wheel, club, lotus flower, arrow, bow, shield, and sword. And they were decorated with golden ornaments, such as bangles and bracelets. His whole body resembled a blossoming tree, beautifully decorated with various kinds of flowers. Purport by His Divine Grace. The face of Lord Vishnu, as described in this verse, appears like a lotus flower, with bees humming over it. All the ornaments on the body of Lord Vishnu resemble molten gold, like the reddish gold color of the morning rising sun. The Lord appears just as the morning sun rises to protect the whole universal creation. His arms display different weapons, and his 8 hands are compared to the 8 petals of a lotus flower. All the weapons mentioned are for the protection of his devotees. Generally, the 4 hands of Lord Vishnu are the wheel, club, conch shell, and lotus flower. These 4 symbols are seen in the 4 hands of Vishnu in different arrangements. The club and the wheel are the Lord's symbols of punishment for the demons and miscreants, and the lotus flower and conch shell are used to bless the devotees. There are always 2 classes of men, the devotees and the demons, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Paritranaya sadhunam. The Lord is always ready for the protection of the devotees and the annihilation of the demons. There are demons and devotees in this material world, but in the spiritual world there is no such distinction. In other words, Lord Vishnu is the proprietor of both the material and spiritual worlds. In the material world, almost everyone is in the demoniac nature, but there are also devotees who appear to be in the material world, although they are always situated in the spiritual world. A devotee's position is always transcendental, and he is always protected by Lord Vishnu. Srila Prabhupada ki. Narayanam narvaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devyam saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udhirayet mukam karoti vachalam pangulam gayate girim yakripatamaham bande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanyam Ishwaram Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Samitinamne Namo Prabhupada Purisa Jagannatha Yatananda Mati Bhatsukena Krishna Kirtana Narasimhena Lakshatayin Maha. Okay. So in reading this purport and others previous verses and in the further beyond this also, it comes very clear lessons we can learn from the pastime of Daksha and this pastime of Virabhadra and Shiva and Sati, right? It's a very beautiful pastime, but very heavy pastime as well. But first, in this purport, the description of the Lord is given, very beautiful description of the Lord is given, and in many other parts of Bhagavatam, the Puranas, many other descriptions of the Lord are given, and it's very important for us to not, subconsciously consider it an imagination. Sometimes we as devotees, we think, oh no, I believe it. I understand the Lord is like the rising sun. He has this many arms. But do we really understand what that means? Do we really accept it wholeheartedly that that is what the Lord looks like and that is the Lord? Because superficially we can be, yes, that is, But Devamrita Maharaj, I was listening to a lecture of his, and he's mentioning that it's very important for us to actually wholeheartedly, at least with an open heart, be able to accept that that's the Lord's description, and that is the description, the great potency of the Lord. Sometimes when we hear of the Lord's opulences, subconsciously we want to deride the Lord. We want to say, no, it's there. It's an exaggeration, right? Subconsciously. We may not even, openly say it or openly think it, but subconsciously we don't actually understand that this is fully describing what the Lord is and what He looks like and what He's capable of. But one way that we can understand it is that would we like to have this kind of power? Would we like to have all the potency? Would we like to have all the riches in the world? And if we would like to have it, why can't the Lord have it? If we have 2 hands, why can't He make more? Right? There's that description of Narada Muni, right? Lord Vishnu told him to go to the Brahmana and to the cobbler to see who's a greater devotee of the Lord, right? And so Narada Muni, he went to the Brahmana, and the Brahmana said, you're going to the Lord, can you please ask Him when I will go back to Vaikuntha? And so Narada Muni said, okay, when I go, I'll ask Him. So then the cobbler asked Narada Muni the same question, can you please ask the Lord when I'll have the pleasure of seeing Him again? And Narada Muni said, okay. So he went to Lord Narayan in Vaikuntha and asked, so I met this Brahmana and this cobbler, and they both asked me when they'll come and see you again. And so Narayan said, for the cobbler, you can tell him as soon as he leaves this body, he'll come to me. And for the Brahmana, you can tell him he'll take many, many, many births. So Narada Muni was confused. And so Narayan told him, okay, go back and tell them when they ask you what I was doing when you came to see me, right? Tell them that I was trying to put an elephant through the eye of a needle. We all, for sure, stitch closed at some point, and you know how difficult it is to put a thread through the eye of a needle while I speak of an elephant. So Narada Muni went back to earth, and the Brahmin was so happy to see him, gave him a hug. So, wow, so nice to see you again. Please tell me, what did Vishnu say? When will I go to Vaikuntha? And Narada Muni said, my dear Brahmin, I'm sorry to say, but Narayan said it would take many, many births. And so the Brahmin said, I don't believe he even went to Vaikuntha. What was Vishnu doing when he went there? With a challenging attitude. And so he said, Vishnu was trying to put the elephant through the eye of a needle. And the Brahmin said, you see, you're lying. It's impossible. How can anyone put an elephant through the eye of a needle? You must be imagining. So he left. And then he went to the cobbler. And the cobbler, before asking what Vishnu said, he said, my dear Narada, please tell me, what pastime was Vishnu performing when you saw him? And so he said, Vishnu was trying to put the elephant through the eye of a needle. And the cobbler jumped in ecstasy. Wow, what a beautiful pastime. So amazing how glorious the Lord is. And so Narada was confused. He said, you believe this? Like, you think it's possible? Of course it's possible, he said. So he picked up a seed, a banyan seed. If you see a banyan seed, it's a very small seed. A fruit falls and many, many small seeds come out. And he said, this seed, the Lord is able to put this giant tree inside this tiny little seed. So if He's able to do that, why can't He put an elephant through an eye of a needle? He can put hundreds of elephants through an eye of a needle. And so Narada Muni understood that it's not the outward appearance, right? The surrender of the Vaishnava is what counts. So we have to have that kind of surrender that we can read the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and fully accept it to the heart, not read it as some sort of, how would I say, esoterical stories to teach us certain morals, right? Like the Hitopadesh or Panchatantra. These aren't just stories to teach us a lesson behind it. It's truly happened. It truly existed. Many, many other places in Mahabharata, it's very common, especially in Puranas, that the sages will use stories to illustrate different morals, different principles, different purposes that they're trying to tell, right? Like there's the pastime when the Pandavas, they went to the forest, right? They were in the forest the first time. And Duryodhana, he wanted to show off in front of the Pandavas, right? So he went with a big parade, made a big festival on the other side of the lake where the Pandavas were staying. And the Pandavas didn't really notice. But at that time, Markandeya Rishi was there with the Pandavas. And Markandeya Rishi was telling them the pastime of what they should do now when they're in in the forest when they're in exile, what they should be doing. So to illustrate his point, he told them the story of Nala and Damayanti. And this story of Nala and Damayanti is so long, right? I remember we were hearing Mahabharata, and for weeks we were just hearing about Nala and Damayanti. And then in the pastime of Nala and Damayanti, they tell about another pastime of Harishchandra, right? So they're telling story and the story, all to illustrate that when calamities come, right, as in Nala and Damayanti, as in Harishchandra, we should use the opportunity to further surrender to the Lord. So Markandeya Rishi tells this giant pastime simply to bring that point. So in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Vyasadeva, he's writing, and he tells all these beautiful stories of the Lord and his devotees. Of course, they're pure stories, even of their own, but they teach very important lessons for us as devotees. Understand? So in this pastime, there's so many different lessons that are there, but some that I reflected on, and some also that I heard from different swamis giving lectures on this same verse, or on other verses in this chapter, is that number one is that we should not hesitate to follow the instruction of the Lord. When Sati was going to go to her father's house for this festival, Shiva told her, better you shouldn't go, we weren't invited. Something it will be for your ultimate, demise. It won't be good for you. But Sati, because of her attachment to her family and to, that intricacies of social interaction, she didn't listen to Shiva. And she argued with him. No, I want to go, I need to go. And Shiva kept trying to instruct her, but she didn't. And so she went. Right? And then, what did she do? She gave up her body that was connected to her father. Of course, all these pastimes happen so that we can understand, so that we can learn from their example. But this is another point we can understand, that we shouldn't hesitate. We shouldn't hesitate to follow the instruction of the spiritual master or the instruction of the Lord or instruction of Srila Prabhupada that's in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. We should wholeheartedly accept it and immediately try to use it or follow it in our lives. There may be shortcomings, there may be fall downs, there may be so many different problems in our devotional service, but as Devamrita Maharaj mentions, he says that bhakti is a career, right? You might get fired, you may, be demoted, but you should keep going, right? It's a long-term road. You have to really continue. So to not hesitate in the service of the Lord and to not hesitate to follow His instructions is very important. Another pastime where we can see this illustrated is in the Mahabharata, when Yudhisthira Maharaj was instructed by Krishna to tell a half-truth, right? Say the Ashwatthama, the elephant, is dead, right? So that Dronacharya would lose his spirit of fighting and he would be able to be defeated because he was destroying the Pandava army by the Akshahinis, one at a time, boom. And Yudhisthira Maharaj, prior to this, Yudhisthira Maharaj, because he never told a lie, he achieved, it's not really like a boon you can say, but because of his purity, he would never touch the ground. His feet would always hover a little bit above the ground. He was so pure because he never told a lie. Even his chariot wouldn't touch the ground. Right? This is a symptom of the demigods, that they do not touch the ground because of their purity. And so Yudhisthira Maharaj had that equal, even greater purity because he never told a lie. And so this attachment that Yudhisthira Maharaj had to not tell a lie, he hesitated in listening to the instruction of Krishna. And according to the Karmakandas, because he told a lie, that's why his feet touched the ground at that point. But according to Sri Baladevi Vidyabhushan Prabhu, I think it was him, I'm not 100% sure, it's because he hesitated to follow the instruction of Krishna, and therefore he became impure, and that's why he touched the ground. Right? To listen to an instruction of the Lord is never something irreligious. But because he was attached to his material piety of not telling a lie, therefore, that was his fault. Right? Another part where you can see where this is illustrated of hesitation is in Arjuna. When he started hearing the Bhagavad Gita from the Lord, he was trying to, I wouldn't say argue, but he was putting his doubts forward through his materialistic understanding of morality. And so Krishna was instructing him, and he brought this doubt and that doubt, and how can you say this, but how can I be happy? And so many doubts, and only in the second chapter, then he finally says, okay, I'm your disciple, instruct me. right? Karpanya doso mata sabhava, right? At that point, he says, now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness, right? He accepts that I am wrong, right? In this condition, I'm asking you to please tell me what is certainly best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. From that point on, Krishna starts telling him the truth. Not that he wasn't telling the truth, but he says it in such a straightforward way. Right? Give up all the varieties of religion, only surrender unto me. And then he goes through all the way up to pure bhakti. Right? So to not hesitate is one of the prerequisites for us to be able to read Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and to fully accept it. To not have this subconscious block of what we think is reality and what we think we can use in our lives. To wholeheartedly accept everything that is given. And to immediately try follow it in our lives to whatever extent we're able to, right? To not let that subconscious block think, okay, yes, I understand, but, right? That's why it's one of the offenses to the holy name to consider the glories of the holy name to be an imagination, right? So the name, form, and qualities of the Lord are non-different. So to think the form of the Lord, the description of the form of the Lord to also be an imagination, even subconsciously, is a form of aparat. So we have to be careful about that, right? Okay. Another very important lesson that we can learn from this pastime, and it's quite obvious, is that we should not stand by or tolerate things that we know it's wrong, such as Vaishnava aparat, just because it's happening in the community or happening in front of us and other people are agreeing with it. Right? In this ceremony, Shiva was being openly criticized and insulted. And the great brahmanas and rishis and demigods, they didn't do anything about it. They didn't leave and they just stayed there because the great Prajapati Daksha was the one talking and so many other people were there not doing anything about it. So they all went along. And what happened to them? Right? The ghosts and goblins came. Many got their arms cut off, their legs cut off. Afterwards we're hearing, right? And Shiva's telling them what they should do. Those who don't have arms will have to use the work of their disciples. Those who don't have mouths will have to eat through the sacrifice. Right? All of this could have been averted if they left. Right? So many other places it's mentioned. Sanatana Goswami mentioned, Rupa Goswami mentioned. In the when criticism of Vaishnavas happen, one should immediately leave that place and jump in Ganga, right? With all your clothes, is mentioned. But at least leave the place. Leave the place. One should not stay there simply because everybody else is going along with it. So that firm conviction and we knowing what's right and understanding and not tolerating something simply because other people are is a very important lesson we can learn from this pastime. Right? And this is so important that we do not simply go along with the vox populi, right? What everybody else says is right, so it must be right. Or what everybody else is doing, that must be correct. No. We know what was right based on the instructions of Srila Prabhupada and our spiritual master, right? Our Siksha Gurus. That's who we listen to. We do not simply go along with the general consensus of what's right because, oh, I don't want to stand out. I don't want to be the weird one. Otherwise, this will happen to our devotional service. It'll be destroyed. Simply because we went along with what everybody else is doing. Right? So firm conviction in the words of Srila Prabhupada, firm conviction in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is so important for us to progress actually in devotional service. And not simply take it superficially. Yeah? Okay. Another thing that's mentioned in this verse, which is very important, is that the Lord does not see any distinction in the spiritual world. In the ultimate sense, there's no distinction between the demons, the demigods, the living entities in this material world, because we're all here. You can imagine that it's we're in a school, and some students may be more advanced and higher grades or excelling in the classroom, and some students may not be. Some students may be, very ignorant. But they're all in the same school. They're all people, right? So for the Lord in this material world, we're all souls who have forgotten our connection to Him. Some might have been some are more in ignorance, some are less in ignorance and understand who He is and are trying to see their relationship with the Lord. But in the ultimate sense, we're all in the same prison. We're all in the same material world. Right? There's that sense, Ramananda Prabhu was saying in that lecture, he was saying the Durga means the prison house, right? The fortress. Right? So this material world is a fortress, a prison where we're all trying to enjoy separate from the Lord. And so for the Lord, he feels compassion to all of us, both demons and living entities and demigods equally, because we're all parts and parcels of the Lord, and therefore we are trying to enjoy separate from him, but those who are trying to understand him and trying to serve him are more dear to him, obviously. But he sees no distinction between demons and demigods in that way. Yeah, and that's why he shows his mercy to the demigods in a so-called positive way, and to the demons in a so-called negative way, but they both achieve the same ultimate goal, back to Godhead. He kills the demons, and he shows mercy to the devotees, so that encourages them. Right? There's the demoniac nature is that when the problem comes up, you try figure out a solution with your own power. Right? The description is given that when Hiranyakasipu saw Lord Nrsimhadev, he didn't think, oh, this is the Supreme Lord. He thought, no, this is some entity that has achieved great power through austerity, just like I have. And therefore, I am able to defeat him. And that's why he attacked Nrsimhadev. Right? In no place do they want to recognize the supremacy of the Lord, because then that diminishes their capability to enjoy separate from him. Right? If you recognize that the Lord is all-powerful, then what's the point of you in trying to become powerful, because he is the source of all power. So to be able to try independently to achieve something, you have to believe that you're capable of doing it. And therefore, the demonic nature is described in Bhagavad Gita, right? Ishvaroham aham bhogi, right? I will become strong. I am all-powerful. I am all-knowing. So this mentality is within all of us, that we think we can enjoy separate from the Lord. And only when we come to that spiritual nature, where when a calamity comes, or when problems come, impediments come, or even good things come in our life, when we turn to the Lord, either with gratefulness or with full surrender, then we'll be able to become delivered from this material world. When we become more conscious of the Lord. And that's what demigods do. The demigods try to do different things. When it doesn't work, they run to Krishna. Please protect us. Please come. Please this. When the demons have problems, they regroup. No, okay, more austerities, more boons. I need to become more invincible. They try to do it independent from the Lord. Yeah. And they do not want to recognize the supremacy. Another pastime is there in the Ramayana, is when Ravana saw that all the monkeys were coming across the ocean to attack Lanka. He understood that this is, this must be a problem, and so I need more wealth, I need more armies, I need more power. So he went to his great-great-great-great-grandfather. I'm not sure how he's connected to Bali Maharaj, but he's connected, right? They're all asuras. So he went to Patala Loka, he went to Bali Maharaj's place. And the pastime is actually quite funny, that when he got there, Vamanadev is protecting the gate of Bali Maharaj. And so first he saw this little kid there. And so he told, get out of the way, move, I'm going in. So Vamanadev just put his club there, and Ravana couldn't move it. And so Ravana became very small to try to go in, and Vamanadev put his toe in front of him, didn't let him go. So only when he fully gave up and he asked please with surrender, Vamanadev let him go. And there's actually more things that happened, but I won't go into detail. Then Ravana went to Bali Maharaj, and so he said, my dear Bali Maharaj, I have a big battle coming. Please, can you give me wealth and armies? I need help to be able to protect my city. And so Bali Maharaj said, yeah, sure, come. So he took him to the backyard, and Bali Maharaj, of course, has an amazing kingdom. They're walking through the gardens, and Ravana saw this mountain of gold with this giant jewel at the top. Giant mountain of gold. And so Bali Maharaj said, here, take this mountain. And so Ravana went, and he tried to pick up the mountain. He couldn't even get his fingers underneath. And Ravana is famous for having picked up Mount Kailash, right? He tried to pick up the mountain, he couldn't lift it, he couldn't move it, couldn't even budge it. And so Ravana was sitting there completely exhausted from trying to move this mountain. Bali Maharaj said, you fool, do you know what this mountain is? He said, this is the earring of Hiranyakashipu. This is one earring of Hiranyakashipu. And that Hiranyakashipu, whose earring you can't even budge, was lost in the fingernail of Lord Nrsimhadev. Right? Nrsimhadev went to grab Hiranyakashipu. Vroom! Where's Hiranyakashipu? Couldn't find him anymore. And he was lost in the fingernail, so Nrsimhadev had to become smaller to be able to actually fight with Hiranyakashipu. Right? So Bali Maharaj is telling him, and that same Lord has now come incarnated as Ramachandra. That same Lord who's at my door, protecting my door, and you weren't able to pass. That same Lord is now as Ramachandra, and he's on your gate in Lanka, and you want to fight him. Your great, ancestor, look, this is his earring, and he was destroyed like if he was nothing. But Ravana thought, no, he didn't want to even hear this. So he thanked Bali Maharaj and left. He was so scared of good instruction. And on his way back to Lanka, he's thinking, nah, it's an exaggeration. It's not possible. It's not true. He didn't want to even accept it. So this is the mentality of the demons, that they don't want to accept, they don't want to recognize, they don't even want to hear the glories of the Lord, because then that diminishes their capability to enjoy separate from Him. Yeah, sometimes when we are in this mentality, I know for myself, sometimes when I'm in a little bit of a mood of sense gratification, right? And you're scrolling, and the unending scroll, and a class of Srila Prabhupada pops up, and you skip it. Right? Why? Because that's not what I'm looking for right now. I will listen to it, but not right now. Right now I'm looking for my sense gratification. This is the mentality of the demons. This is the demoniac mentality, and you don't even think about it. But this is what it is. Sometimes when you're in that mode of enjoyment, Krishna consciousness can be a little bit of a hindrance. Right? But it's subconscious. We don't even think about it. But this is exactly what Ravana did. This is exactly what Hiranyakashipu did. This is exactly what every single demon did. This unwillingness to accept or to think about Krishna as a supreme Lord, because that is a hindrance in their own sense gratification. That's a hindrance in their own unending pursuit of happiness in this material world. So we have to be more careful and more conscious of this, and be able to wholeheartedly accept the instructions of the Lord, and accept the description of the Lord, the glories of the Lord. And just as the cobbler did, fully accepted and fully was able to glorify and relish the pastime of the Lord. Right? There's the other description of the spiritual world when the cowherd boys, right, when they hear about the glories of the Lord in this way, right? For them, it's not a hindrance for their material sense gratification. For them, it's a hindrance in their devotional service, because then it blocks that closeness with the Lord. So this is a whole different level of hindrance that I don't think we need to worry about right now. But we should understand the greatness. The other day I was listening to Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the description of Narada Muni looking for the greatest devotee of the Lord, right? And so he's going from one person to another, and first he goes through Karma Mishra Bhaktas, Jnana Mishra Bhaktas, then eventually he gets to the gopis, right? And so the reason why the gopis and the cowherd boys and the whole purpose of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and the purpose of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is showing, through a gradual description, it's showing us that the greatest devotees of the Lord are in Goloka Vrindavan, the gopis. Because they're not even interested in the opulence of the Lord. They're simply interested in how can I serve Him. And that's their glory. That's their anyabilashita sunyam, unalloyed, pure devotional service. They have no desire, simply for the pleasure of the Lord. Yeah? Okay. So tomorrow is also, it's Ras Purnim, so it's a very, very special day for all of us. But I thought we could describe also, because tomorrow is the disappearance day of Sri Murari Gupta Prabhu. And I know the speaker tomorrow. Are you giving class tomorrow, Prabhu? I know you'll probably speak on Ras Purnim or something else.
I didn't went that far yet.
Okay. But I thought I could speak about Murari Gupta Prabhu. So, who here knows who Murari Gupta Prabhu is, just at least in Mahaprabhu's pastime? We've heard of him, right? So Murari Gupta Prabhu was born in Sylhet, in Bangladesh, in actually the same hometown of Jagannath Mishra. Many of our acharyas were born in that area. And he came to Navadip later on, of course, because the pure devotees of the Lord knew that the Lord would take birth there. But, by the Lord's arrangement, they came. And he had many intimate pastimes with Lord Chaitanya. especially as a young child and later before his sannyas pastimes. Murari Gupta Prabhu's house is just less than a kilometer away from Yogapit, the house of Jagannath Mishra and Sachimata. So you can imagine Nimai, small boy, he would run around. It was pretty much like his backyard. He would go everywhere to Murari Gupta's house. And so there's many wonderful pastimes, but one pastime that was described by Japataka Maharaj is that one day when little Nimai was walking around, he went to the house of Murari Gupta, and Murari Gupta was a physician, a Vaidya. He was an Ayurvedic doctor. And so he was giving a discourse on Hatha Yoga and Patanjali Yoga and Pranayam. And so he had a great group of students, and he was teaching them, breathe in like this, breathe in like that. And so Javadaka Maharaj said that Nimai Pandit started imitating him. Breathe in like this, breathe in like that, sit straight, this leg up, that hand up, making fun of his class. And so Murari Gupta Prabhu kept on trying to focus and teach his students, but he was there, Nimai Pandit was there on the side, making so many jokes about everything he said, saying it in a funny way, twisting his words, doing so many things. And so Murari Gupta Prabhu turned to Nimai and said, "You are a son of a Brahmana. Why are you acting this way?" And so Nimai said, "Just as you are disturbing your bhakti by talking about this impersonal philosophy, I will come and disturb you later on." So Nimai Pandit left. He ran away. Then later on, Murari Gupta Prabhu was eating lunch, and Nimai Pandit came from behind and shouted in his ear, "Murari!" And so he got so scared, he completely forgot what he was doing, and he turned out and jumped around. And Nimai said, "You are doing this. You're doing this to yourself. You're disturbing your own bhakti, your own bhakti yoga by describing all these impersonal nonsense philosophies. You're shocking yourself out of your progress in bhakti by doing this." So he was in total shock. He didn't understand what was happening. And so Nimai showed him the form of Krishna, showed him that, that he's Krishna, non-different, and ran away. So Murari went running after him, running after Krishna, right? And he came to the house of Jagannath Mishra, and immediately Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went and jumped on the lap of Jagannath Mishra. And when Murari entered the house, he saw that Nimai was playing with Jagannath Mishra and playing with Sachimata in such a loving way. So he was just observing this wonder, and he could really see that this is the Lord himself. And so he came into the presence of Jagannath Mishra, and he said, "Jagannath Mishra, I have to tell you something so important." He was going to tell him that his son's Krishna himself. And Nimai started crying and crying and crying and started screaming and distracting, shouting louder than Murari is telling Jagannath Mishra. And he started crying, "I want milk, I want milk." So Sachimata gave him milk. And so Murari Gupta Prabhu understood that Nimai doesn't want him to tell Jagannath Mishra who he is. And so Murari Gupta very humbly paid obeisances and left. And from that day on, there were so many other pastimes where Nimai would come and defeat Murari Gupta's philosophies on, so many different things. Even one day he came, and Murari Gupta Prabhu is the reincarnation of Hanuman in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. And so he had very beautiful Sitaram Lakshman deities, and he was worshipping them. And so Nimai Pandit came and was telling him about the supremacy and the greatness of Lord Sri Radhakrishna, and was saying, "You should surrender to them. Why do you continue worshipping Ramachandra? He's not as merciful," and describing this, and completely defeating everything that Murari Gupta Prabhu was trying to say. And he says, "You should fully surrender to Radhakrishna. You shouldn't continue your worship of Lord Ramachandra. You should fully surrender to Radhakrishna." And so Murari, understanding who the Lord is and being fully surrendered, he said, "Okay, I will." And so that whole night he was trying to think of how he's going to surrender to Radhakrishna, and he couldn't. He felt like his heart was ripping apart, and he was begging the Lord to please end his life there and there, because he couldn't give up the service of Lord Ramachandra, and he could not listen to the instruction of Lord Chaitanya, of Nimai. And so that the next day in the morning, he ran to Nimai Pandit, and he paid obeisances, grabbed hold of his feet, and he said, "My Lord, please end my life. I can't continue like this. On one hand, you're instructing me to surrender to Radha Krishna, and I cannot. I'm trying my best, but I cannot. So because I cannot follow your instruction, please end my life." And so Nimai Pandit gave him a big hug and said that you are Hanuman. Your unalloyed attachment to the lotus feet of the service of Lord Ramachandra is unquestioned and supremely chaste. And this is your glory. So you go on worshipping Ramachandra, he said. You do not need to change. I was simply going to show your glories in this way. So this pastime shows us the importance of chastity and full surrender and undivided and undeviating surrender to our spiritual master, to the process of Krishna consciousness, to the process of bhakti. That we should be like Hanuman. We should be like Murari in that way. That we should not, simply because what other people say or because of different attachments we may have, so easily give up the process, so easily give up our attachments, so easily give up our sadhana and our progress in devotional service. Simply with a little bit of hindrance, a little bit. In this way we can understand how great Murari Gupta Prabhu was and how great Hanuman is. Right? The main quality that described of Murari Gupta Prabhu was his humility. And that we see the same in Hanuman. Hanuman was so supremely powerful. There's so many pastimes in the Ramayana and in the Puranas describing the power of Hanuman. But Hanuman, in all his great feats of strength that he did and the amazing powers he had, he never thought that it was me who's doing it. It's not my power. He always thought that it's because the glories of Ram, because it's the power of Ram's name. When Hanuman jumped from India all the way to Sri Lanka, at that time was 100 yojanas, he was convinced that it's only the power of Ram's name that's carrying him through the air. When he jumped, he said, Ram. And one name of the Lord, he managed to cross the whole ocean. And he was convinced that it's only because of the power of Lord Ram. When he was carrying the mountains to make the bridge, he was chanting Ram's name. And it's because the power of Ram's name that they feel light as a feather. He never thought that it's my power. Anything that was needed in the Lord's service he performed because it was for the Lord, because it was the power of Ram's name. And there's the other pastime where Sudarshan was subtly considering himself to be one of the most powerful servants of the Lord. Gaura and Sudarshan, they thought that I'm the most powerful. And so the Lord, Krishna, understanding this, he wanted to subdue their pride a little bit. And so he told Sudarshan, he told Garuda, go and tell Hanuman that I want to see him. And so Garuda flew like the speed of the mind to Kimpurusha Loka and went to Hanuman and said, Hanuman, Krishna wants to see you. And so Hanuman said, yeah, I'll come. I'm just finishing my worship. I'll come. And Garuda said, how can you not listen to the instruction of the Lord? He wants to see you right now. He said, I'll come. So Garuda flew back and and Krishna said, where's Hanuman? And he said, I told him, but he's doing his worship and he's not going to come now. He said he'll come later. And so Krishna said, what did you say? And he said, I told him that Krishna is asking him to come. Asking you to come to his palace. He wants to see you. And so Krishna said, you should have told him that Raghunath, that Ramachandra is calling him. So Garuda flew back to Hanuman. And he said, Hanuman, the Lord wants to see you. Ramachandra wants to see you. And before he could even say Ram, Hanuman was gone. And he was like, so he flew back as fast as he could. And at the same time, Krishna told Sudarshan, who was protecting the gate of Dwarka, of Vaikuntha, he said, do not let anyone in. Doesn't matter who they are, do not let anyone in. And so Hanuman came in front of the Lord. And Garuda came afterwards, and Hanuman was already there. And so Garuda understood that Hanuman's hundreds of times more powerful than me. He flew 10 times faster than I did, and I flew at the speed of mind. And so Krishna said, Hanuman, you're here. Where's Sudarshan? I told him not to let anyone in. And Hanuman was like, Sudarshan? Who's Sudarshan? He said, this disc, this big chakra. And so Hanuman said, oh, here. And he took out Sudarshan from his armpit. Hanuman saw that Sudarshan's in the way, so he just grabbed Sudarshan, put him under his arm, and went in front of the Lord. Anything that's needed in the Lord's service, Hanuman's able to do. There's no limit to what he can do because it's for the Lord's service. Hanuman, if Krishna needs even to see him, and Sudarshan, the Lord's most powerful, most protected, most unconceivably powerful weapon is there's nothing for Hanuman because it's in the Lord's service. And he doesn't consider it his power. He considers it the power of the Lord. So in that way, both Sudarshan and Garuda's pride was a little bit subdued, and the glory of Hanuman was propounded or was said. Yeah? So we can understand this great humility of Hanuman and Murari Gupta Prabhu in the service of the Lord. And so we should understand that nothing we do And the service of the Lord is our own accomplishment. It's all by the mercy of the Lord, by the power of the Lord, by the mercy of His devotees that we're able to do anything. And in that way we can stay humble. Sometimes in devotional service or in ISKCON, great society, we do many amazing things, big things. And when pride arises, then downfall is imminent, is right there. So we should always remember the greatness of Hanuman, the greatness of Murari Gupta, and understand that humility, that nothing is we can do independent of the Lord. And even if Hanuman can lift the mountains and not think it was him, can defeat great demons and not even consider that was his own power, what are we to think that, I cooked a great feast, I did a great puja, I did a great yajna, I did a great preaching, I raised many millions of dollars for the temple. No, it's all the mercy of the Lord. We're just instruments. He's giving us the opportunity to be engaged in His service. The Lord doesn't need us. Yeah? Jai Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki, Shri Murari Gupta ki, Shri Hanumanji ki, Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Any questions? Yes, bro.
Well, thank you for many nice points we can chew on. This last point you said humility, it keeps us humble. I think also we need also humility to really accept the descriptions of the Lord. It goes together. Therefore, the coupler, because he was humble, because he was only a coupler, therefore he could accept as it was. And then when we accept the Lord as it is, or read Bhagavad Gita as it is, and accept it as it is, then we can preach it, or then we can be for more use. But I want this point what you made before about, you spoke about this pastime of Yudhishthira, who then, because of his half-lie, could not touch the ground. And then you continued and said this, we should not tolerate Vaishnava aparat and stand idly, or we should jump in the Ganga, stuff like that. This is, I think, for me, that's very difficult sometimes to apply, because we not always can discriminate what is a lie and what is a defense. Or when I saw devotees telling me, you should, you can cheat a little bit, because Yudhishthira even is for Krishna's service. In book distribution you speak about, it's a yoga book, or it's about Kama Sutra, all kinds of stuff. You can lie because it's, for service. And but history showed also it fired back in some sense. When they did in Germany, they raised great funds of telling, we collecting €5, only €5 for poor children in India. Half lie, right? And then, maybe some children got some toy over, I don't know, and then all the money was taken away from East, and all, it was a huge thing actually. And the same with Vaishnava Aparata. It's, sometimes we see something is wrong, and it goes even from maybe from senior point, maybe from much senior point, maybe even from preachers who are quite successful, and everybody follows because they should have the right. But we see things what is maybe doesn't feel right, or whatever. So how to draw the line between following just the vox popular, in this case, telling a lie, what is half lie and what is an offense, just because it feels to me it's not right, maybe I'm in the ego and the big preacher says it, and therefore I have to, everybody goes, so maybe can you understand my question?
Sure, yeah. So there's different levels. So basically what's described, I think Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes it in Jaiva Dharma, is that if you can do something about it, if you're in the position to do something about it, and if you're able to do something about it, you should do something, because that's your responsibility.
We speak about not
Offenses, right. And if you're not able to, you should at least leave the place, right? That's the general instruction that's given, formal, right? For things that are directly offensive to devotees. That's Vaishnava Aparad, because that's a hindrance for our own devotional service. That's something that we cannot tolerate. That's not something that we should stand by. Doesn't matter who's doing, right? If we think it's Vaishnava Aparad, we should leave the place. If we're not sure if it's Vaishnava Aparad, then we have Shiksha Gurus, we have our Diksha Guru, we have people that we can ask about this. We can inquire submissively, say, my dear spiritual master, this happened. I don't know how to understand it. I don't know how to accept it. Can you please guide me? And therefore, having full surrender in the instruction of the spiritual master, and having performed our duty of inquiring submissively, whatever he says, we are able to fully follow, and therefore we'll be able to progress in our devotional service. That's for Vaishnava Aparad, right? Then for all these other systems of fundraising or practices that there may be in our... Oh, they're not really half lies. I think that's that yukta vairagya principle that's very misused, and how would I say, overly used as an excuse in our society. That I need to go to the temple, so I need a car. What car do you get? The most fancy car. Why? Because then I can go faster. No, there's speed limits. You can't go any faster anyway, right? But I need the $100,000 car because. No, that's your anartha of wanting to have a $100,000 car, and therefore you're using it in the Krishna service. Be honest about what it is. It's Sakam Karma Yoga. You're using it, have a desire, but you're using it in the Lord's service. So you can't cheat yourself in that way. But these things that you say yukta vairaga, using in the Lord's service, and it's not, that's going to bite back, and that's going to come back to you, because you're how would I say? It's almost like an offense to the holy name that you're committing sinful activities on the strength of the holy name or on the strength of devotional service, right? And so if we are not able to discriminate what is wrong or what's right, or if we're not able to clearly see that, no, what this devotee is doing or what this community is doing is wrong, and then we're not in a position to do anything about it, therefore we should focus on the devotional service, and the Lord will take care of the situation. If we are in a position where we have the capability to do something about it, we should do something about it. And if it's really bothering our minds and we are finding it difficult for us to continue in our devotional service thinking about all this, then we should inquire submissively from the spiritual master, saying, I'm having difficulty understanding this. Can you please tell me? And if he says, no, this is wrong, then accept it as wrong. But if you're not in a position to do anything about it, then what can you do? You go on with your own devotional service, and the Lord will take care of the situation. Having full surrender in that way, that the Lord will take care of his devotees, and the mission of Srila Prabhupada and ISKCON will go on, because it's his desire, and it's the desire of a pure devotee of the Lord that will go on. The Lord will take care of the situation, just like he did, as you said, in Germany many years ago. And it was a big lesson for ISKCON as a whole to understand and to realize. At that same time, many things were happening all over the world, in the excuse of fundraising. Right? But you see nowadays how much more funds are being raised for the construction of the TOEP, for the prasad distribution, where they're actually using it in prasad distribution. So much more Lakshmi is coming in because of the proper followance, because of the proper surrender to the Lord. I'm not saying that all the processes that are going on are proper, but I'm saying that those that are ultimately successful, yes, they're following the proper guidelines, the proper rules and regulations, and therefore Lakshmi comes. But the basic principle, it has to be as mentioned by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, is that if we're in a position to do something about it, we should do something about it. If we're not sure about it, we can inquire submissively. That's why we have spiritual masters. And if we're not able to do anything about it and we know that it's wrong, we should leave the place right away. Or at least not let it continue contaminating our consciousness and hindering our devotional service.
what about picking more on this point? What about you see something is wrong, you feel it's wrong. You ask your spiritual master. He says it's right, and
then you continue asking until our doubt is fully diminished. Right? We have to continue inquiring submissively, and if we see that our doubt is not being diminished, even after more inquiring submissively and actually trying to accept what our spiritual master or what Srila Prabhupada says, then that's a fault in ourselves.
Yeah, but what if you see then, you try to understand, you try to work with it, and then you see actually it was wrong.
You mean
actually the thing was not right. Your feeling was correct, but everybody told you no, it's fine, accept it.
But in that way, you have to be very careful not to then commit offenses, thinking that no, I was right, they were wrong, rather than okay, it was the Lord's arrangement that nothing happened at that time, and they had to go through that lesson, they had to go through that experience, right? But I did everything I could. I asked my spiritual master. He said, okay, I accepted it wholeheartedly. If afterward it turns out wrong, we have to be very careful not to think, oh, my spiritual master is wrong. No, that was the arrangement of Krishna. That was an arrangement of the Lord that had to happen. And it had to go in that way for us and for them to understand the lesson. Right? There's the 3 levels of students. There's those who understand from hearing, those who understand from seeing, and those who understand from feeling. Right? And those who never learn, that's the 4th. But there's the 3, right? And so we understand from seeing. We saw that it was wrong, we asked it was wrong, we understood it's wrong, we're not going to do it. They had to go through feeling. They had to experience it themselves. And so it was the arrangement of the Lord. But in that situation, that does happen, I'm not going to say does happen because then I'm saying the spiritual masters are wrong. But I was saying, it has happened, right? But at that time, the situation was such that the Lord wanted it to happen in that way. And so if we're not able to understand that post something happening, is because of a lack in our own surrender and understanding that everything happens for the arrangement of the Lord. Everything happens by His mercy. Nothing can happen without His mercy. Nothing can happen without His direction. And so we did everything we could. And in that way, we can continue with our devotional service without that feeling of either disturbance, oh, how could this happen? Or without the feeling of superiority, that I'm greater, that I knew better. I knew better than everyone. My feeling was correct. Yeah, so ultimately, like you said in the beginning, humility and surrender is what's going to be able to take us through so many different tests that are going to come, both us individually, us as a family, and us as a community. So many different tests will come, and it's constantly coming and going in our progress through devotional service. And only through humility and surrender to the instruction of the spiritual master and the surrender to the ultimate plan of the Lord, we'll be able to stay afloat, and continue progress in devotional service. Many devotees see things happening, and afterwards they cannot continue on with the devotional service. How can this be the desire of the Lord? How can this happen? How could this happen? Why didn't He prevent it? But then it's the argument of the Christians, where they, not the Christians in general, but if God's all good, how can He let bad things happen? That's, Satyananda Maharaj, he asked Prabhupada that question, no? If God is all good, why did you create Maya? And Prabhupada said, Krishna did not create Maya, you created Maya. And, he was fully satisfied with that answer. He said, yes, makes sense.
I'm also fully satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you for... Any other questions or comments? No? Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Nitai Gaura Nandi. Yes, Prabhu.